Welcome to Body Buddies, home of the Power Foods lifestyle. Take it one meal, one workout, one day at a time. And now, here's the founder of Body Buddies, Kristy Jo.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Body Buddies podcast. This is episode number 177, Healthy Lifestyle Choices for Special Needs Families with Mary Tate. In case we haven't met before, my name is Kristy Jo. I am a mind and body strategist, and I teach people how to bridge the gap between the science of optimality and the reality of our day-to-day lives and psychology. Here at Body Buddies, we become strategists, not just healthy eaters. So if you want to blast through brain fog, experience more natural energy, see some muscle definition, and gain a more healthy relationship with your food and body, I definitely invite you to not only subscribe, but get involved. You can find me always on Facebook Live over at Body Buddies or on Instagram as BodBuds, BODBUDS, or of course we have a gold mine of information that's free as well over on the YouTube channel. Just search for Body Buddies. If you have not yet left a review and you are loving the Body Buddies podcast, just want to say thank you in advance for any positive, helpful reviews you leave, as this does help more individuals like yourself who want to learn and grow and change and gain confidence. It helps them find this podcast. So thank you in advance for heading over to your iTunes or your Stitcher Radio or whatever podcast player you're listening to this on and leaving a positive, uplifting, helpful review for others. Let's go ahead and move into just a few options we do have currently going on for you right now. I'm going to let these play, and then I will introduce to you our special guest, Mary Tate. Are you sick and tired of the confusing information and nutrition advice out there? Start your journey today with real information that makes sense and that you can begin to apply today. You'll lose weight with the Power Foods lifestyle. You will lower your cholesterol, A1C, eliminate brain fog, soothe digestive distress, feel so much more energy, and improve your self-confidence with the Power Foods lifestyle. You do have what it takes to make a true, lasting lifestyle change. Start your journey with the Power Foods Lifestyle Academy, where I'm going to take you through my 12-week online course and teach you through video lessons, tasks, and challenges that will help you learn principle by principle. You're going to make changes slowly and sustainably, ensuring this is not just a crash diet, but rather a sustainable shift in the way you make choices, shop, cook, and eat each day. This is the new and revolutionary approach to health. Go to powerfoodslifestyle.com/enroll to learn more and enroll today. If we're currently not enrolling, get your name on the waiting list for the next time the Academy becomes available. Now we'd like to welcome Mary Tate to the podcast here at Body Buddies. She courageously shares her story in this episode, one of the first times she does, about how for over a decade she was debilitated with obsessive compulsive disorder from her teenage years through her mid-20s. And she lived in one room in her parents' home. She didn't know if she would ever live a regular life. Thankfully, she really, she got through that, and it was incredible. She is a powerful woman, but that's just the beginning of her story. Later, she got married, and then she had a son who brought new challenges into her and her husband's life. They eventually found out that their son had sensory processing disorder. In this conversation, we're going to dive into that story as well as many of the tactics and techniques that she has learned, and now as a holistic practitioner of health and coach, what she helps other families with special needs, helps them learn and apply and make changes and do their best in their families to manage any conditions that come into their world. You know, these kinds of things can't be predicted, and many families who experience this find it to be not only challenging, but also, it challenges faith, it challenges thoughts, it challenges a lot of things. So the thing I really love and appreciate about Mary in this interview is she really brings all of those things together. And this is very uplifting, faith-filled, as well as very practical, solution-oriented. So really appreciate her. In our conversation, she will cover at what point something's off with your child that you need to accept something's wrong or even investigate. How years of occupational therapy and tactile therapy slowly helped our son to begin functioning like a healthy young boy. Sensory processing disorder, what does it look like, sound like, and the experience of homeschooling a child with sensory processing disorder. How gut health is connected to helping her son function as healthily as possible. How yogurt is not the best source of probiotics, and the sugar content is far too high to be the best choice. Why artificial colors are so problematic for children, even without ADHD, as it increases hyperactivity. Why keeping sugar low in children is a top focus point. How gut health is related to helping children thrive. How families can find community for help and support and ideas in whatever condition they are experiencing. Mary and her husband certainly did not sit back and complain that their son had so many conditions to work through and manage, but they stood up. They found solutions. They've helped their son, and now Mary helps other families as well. So you can find her online at treeoflifehealthcoaching.net. If you just tap on your screen, if you're listening on your smartphone, we've got all the show notes there with links, and she also has a Facebook page, so be sure and visit her there. Let her know if this has helped you, if this gives you ideas or inspiration. Just be sure and reach out, give her a thank you. That's what's nice about this digital world. We're all just one message away. So we're very excited for this. I hope you take some notes and feel inspired. And now, without further ado, we'll introduce Mary Tate.
Welcome to the Body Buddies podcast, Mary. We're so excited to have you here to hear your response to our favorite question, which is, what does it mean to power your body?
Well, thank you for having me, Kristy Jo. As a holistic health coach, I believe that I power my body from the inside out. So through the foods that I eat, which of course is your body, the thoughts I think, which is mindset, and the things I believe. So my faith would be in my spirit.
That's beautiful. And looking at all the connection between our bodies, our spirit, the things we choose to do, that's really beautiful. Tell us what that holistic word means. I know that sometimes, it's a word we use a lot, but if you could break it down on a very granular level so that people could understand truly what that means and the difference versus conventional approaches, what does that mean?
Sure. As a holistic health coach, I firmly believe in integrating our whole body. So not just the foods that we eat or the exercises that we do, but the way we're thinking, our mindset, our lifestyle, our attitude, and then, of course, what we believe. So definitely it's a whole body approach versus just, working to eat correctly or exercise correctly. It's more of a whole body approach, your mind, your body, and your spirit.
Definitely resonating with that. That's something I have found as well. When we connect all of those areas, that's the only true answer. We can't just isolate one area. We leave the rest behind. It's all connected. So you're here to help us understand, the connection of things that we can be doing as your experience working with special needs families. Let's start out with how you first got into this. You've got quite the story. Our listeners heard your intro, but I want to dive in deeper. Tell us about the way that you grew up and what that was like for, 10 years to have, OCD, and what was that like? What did you experience?
Well, this is kind of one of the first times I've really spoken out about it. Like I said, it was a part of my story that I feel is very important. I kind of, go back to my son a lot, which I know we'll dive into further, but it really started back, like you shared, that I was debilitated for 10 years with Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. I started probably when I was 14 or 15, so it was right in that sophomore year of high school, and we were under a lot of stress. We had moved to a new area, so there was stress involved, and it came upon me, and I didn't really know what it was, and neither did my family. We didn't know what was going on, and I basically was, debilitated for 10 years, where I lived in one room, which was my parents' bedroom and their bathroom. And that's where I lived for 10 years. And I had, there's different kinds of OCD. So for me, it was, I had fears and phobias of, I wanted everything to be clean. So for me, it was all about chemicals and things that were on the outside. I didn't want to get inside to me. And so it just was this fear that came out probably when I remember exactly when it was in biology class, and we had gotten something on our hands, and the teacher was very adamant about, don't let this get on your hands. It's very hard to get off. You have to wash your hands. And for some reason, it created this fear in me that started, oh my goodness, I have something on me. I have to get it off. And so we, searched for answers, and we finally found out about it, what it was, and started diving into ways to help. But it took a very long time for me to be able to lead a normal life and get back to leading a normal life.
And so when you felt like, quote unquote normal,
right.
you eventually got married, and then you had a son, and this son also experienced some challenges. Tell us about what he faced.
Yes, my first son, we knew that it was, in the very beginning, it was very hard to breastfeed. And of course, as a new mom, first child, you hear all that. So we went to, lactation consultants and all that kind of stuff. And they said, yes, it's hard, and, you'll get the hang of it. You just have to keep working on it. And I actually credit my husband, because many a night I was so ready to give up. And my husband got up with me and sat with me and said, no, you want to do this? You just got to keep pushing. You got to keep pushing. So I did. And eventually he got it. But we found out through all of this, he had a very rough first year of life. He developed chronic constipation, eczema, reflux. He had an oral aversion that I did not know about. So when he was 12 months of age, he was diagnosed as failure to thrive. And our pediatrician said, we need to get you to a developmental pediatrician to find out what's going on with him. So that lady was very seasoned, and she knew right away that Matthew had sensory integration dysfunction, which now a lot of people call it sensory processing disorder. And from what I hear in just speaking with other families and other practitioners, it is very rare to have a child diagnosed that early at 12 months of age. Wow. But I find it such a blessing, because early intervention with any kind of a developmental delay or any kind of a problem with your child is so important. And at that point is when we started years of feeding therapy and occupational therapy and physical therapy, because he wasn't able to crawl due to the low muscle tone. He wasn't able to walk because he hadn't even started to crawl yet. And he had such low muscle tone that we had to teach him how to crawl and how to walk. And then at that point, once we got past that hurdle, we still had the eating issues that went on for years to keep him, where he needed to be. And, when I went to this doctor's visit, she had asked me, well, how long do you plan to nurse? And I had said, oh, well, he's a year old, so I'm going to be stopping. Because at the time, people were like, oh, yeah, you nurse for a year, and then you're done. Mm-hmm. And this is like 20 years ago. So right. I thought, a year, I'm going to nurse for a year, and then I'll be done. And she looked at me, and she said, if you stop nursing, he will die, because you're the only nutrition that he's getting. Because he wasn't able to transition from, baby food to table food. Even like a Cheerio was so much for him to handle. He couldn't handle it. So, I credit early intervention and all the therapies to where he's at today.
So, Mary, I want to go back to the part where you talked about that early diagnosis and treatment, because I'm imagining a lot of our listeners saying, well, number one, at what point do you know something is wrong or something's not right enough that you go in and get the test done? And at what point do you know who to take your child to? Do you have any thoughts on that? Right. Do you experience people with those questions?
I do. Initially, when things didn't seem to be going well, my first thought, I had this little voice that just really screamed out to me, autism. I mean, that was the first thing that I remember coming out in just the spot as he was going through all this. And that's when I firmly believe in listening to your gut. As a mom, you know your child more than anyone else does. You know when things aren't right. You advocate for your child. I tell my families that all the time. If it's not what you think is going, it should be, you go to someone else. You advocate, because you're their voice. You're the only one that can help them. So that's what I did. I mean, I went to my pediatrician and I said, something's not right. I don't know what it is, but something's not right. He will not transition onto, just eating a Cheerio. He has chronic constipation. He has eczema all over his face and on his limbs, all the places where kids get eczema. Chronic reflux, where I'll just remember the one time where we were getting ready to go out and he was in his little bouncy chair, and I literally turned around from 1 minute to the next, and he was wearing his lunch, which was, of course, breastfed, food, because that's all he took. And I just remember saying, this is ridiculous. There's something not right, and I have to find out what it is because it's not fair to him. So we went from doctor to doctor to doctor. We went to GI doctors. We did several tests with GI doctors that just brought back, things that were abnormal, and we tried different things, but nothing seemed to help. And then, of course, still, you've got the reflux, so he's throwing up his food, so he's not even getting nutrition that way, and he's not eating. So basically, you're fighting this battle of you get a little bit in, and then he gets something back out. So they found little pieces of things like his stomach wasn't emptying correctly, and they tried to give him medication to help empty his stomach faster. So he would want more food. But ultimately, it all came down to when I pushed and said, where else can I go? And that's when they said they were going to send me to a developmental pediatrician who specializes in children's development and seeing, and also, being able to say, this isn't normal and this is what it is. And I like I said, I feel highly, just honored and blessed that this doctor knew, because I had no clue. When she said sensory integration, I was like, okay, I don't know, what is that? And then she explained why he had the low muscle tone, why he was refluxing, why he was chronically constipated. Because of this low muscle tone, he wasn't able to, use the bathroom correctly, be able to go to the bathroom, because his muscle tone, there's all muscles inside, of their bodies that helps them, go to the bathroom. And he wasn't able to, digest his food because he was all sunken in. They used to call him the Pillsbury Doughboy because he was so bushy, And to me, I didn't know any better. I just thought, oh, he's a little chubby little guy, So it was it was very overwhelming. And it was, but yet I knew we were on the right track. It's like you had that piece where you're like, okay, I know we're on the right track, and I know these people are going to help us. So that was such a feeling of calm, that it was just a huge blessing to be able to find the therapies that he needed.
So what types of therapies were those? At that point, it was in the third grade that you became a health coach, right? So we're still talking before that happened.
So before all of that, we did the feeding therapy, which was years of feeding therapy where he would go in with an occupational therapist and work with her on different textures and different foods. So we would find out, like what textures were hard for him, which textures would he tolerate, and just basically getting him to dip, even touch a food was huge for Matthew, just so that he would even allow himself to touch the food before he would ever bring it to his mouth was a huge step for him. We found out that he was allergic to peanuts that way, because back, in the day, 20 years ago, that was a great protein. You give your kids peanuts, and I know there's been a lot of peanut butter. There's a lot of theories of the pediatricians of when you introduce and when you don't, but at that time, it was okay to do that, and he was 17 months old at that point. We were still in therapy, and that's when he broke out with a rash, and we're like, oh, okay, well, he's allergic to peanuts, so we need to not introduce that. So he had such a limited diet, and then with his allergies as well, it was just hard. So we did years of feeding therapy in conjunction with occupational therapy So they worked with him on calming, and as far as like he was very tactilely hypersensitive, so even touching sand was a big thing for him. So we would work on touching different materials and different things so that it would also transition into feeding. So if he would touch the sand, he might touch something squishy on his tray so that eventually he might get it to his mouth. So it was a very long process for him to accept these different foods. It's not just, feeding therapy, we're going to introduce a food and he's going to eat it. There's a step-by-step process that goes through all this. And then at that point, we also did, of course, physical therapy to help build up his muscle tone and help him to be able to, digest his food and the normal bodily things that we do to eliminate foods and toxins. So that helped his chronic constipation. So we were on a good, trail, still doing all of this. And then, he went into school. I homeschooled him for kindergarten, and then we moved and we put him into a new school in first grade, and he seemed to do pretty well. The teacher knew all about sensory processing. She was a very seasoned teacher. But in second grade, he had problems, and the teacher said he wasn't able to calm, and I knew it from home that I still thought there's one more piece. There's one more piece missing. I homeschooled him from third to fourth grade, and at that point, we had him tested for ADHD. Because back when he was 6, his pediatrician said, well, we can start him on a medication to see if it works, but we don't really diagnose until they're older. And I said, no, I just want to try natural things. I want to see what I can do. So I worked with different nutritional supplements and different things to try to help calm him down, and, of course, working with him with therapies and stuff. But that's when he was officially diagnosed was around the time I was getting certified with ADHD. At that point. And then we had to start a whole new level of education of, okay, so where does that lead us? And eventually it brought us back to, gut health and where, it all starts. And, of course, that's very popular now, but back in the day, it wasn't. To do that research to find out where, your gut level bacteria in the immune system, 70% of the body's immune system is found in the gut, and how important it is to heal our gut. Because Hippocrates was the one who said all disease begins in the gut. And I firmly believe that. Yeah, so we started on a long road of introducing things to Matthew to help him with his gut health.
It was incredible. I mean, the fact that you and it sounds like your husband very much on board, very supportive, yes, that you didn't just sit back and didn't say, our child has these problems and woe is us. You stood up and you said, look, what are we going to do about it? And, becoming a health coach and now knowing everything you do and now paying it forward. Let's talk about 2 or 3 of the biggest things that you feel are important for families to know that come up constantly in your coaching. What 2 or 3 principles would those be? And let's dive into each one of those. I'll make a little list here and we'll come back to them. What are the first things that come to mind?
First thing that comes to mind is, again, gut health. Gut health is the first thing. The second thing that comes to mind would be just nutrition in general. So you have your gut health, and then you also have the nutrition as far as what are we giving our children, as far as label reading, needing to read labels and know what is exactly in those foods. And then the third thing I would have to say would be community. They're very, very important all together in helping the families as well, being in a community with other people struggling, and getting through these diagnoses.
Great. So let's go back to gut health. Let's talk actual practical application. What's one thing our listeners could start to do differently in their homes that would help their children with their gut health?
First thing I say is, first question I always ask is your child on a probiotic? Now, sometimes people say, oh, yeah, I give them yogurt. And I'm like, Okay, let's talk about that. I never want to put down my family. I want to be uplifting because they're just seeing what's out there. They're just seeing, let's get a yogurt and feed my kid yogurt. We have to really dive into the marketing. Right, exactly. They're looking at the marketing of this is a great probiotic. Well, we have to be careful of several things. First of all, the sugar is huge in a lot of the flavored yogurts. And let's face it, kids love flavored yogurt because it tastes better than whole plain yogurt. I get that. My kids would have done the same thing. If your child likes yogurt, highly recommend getting an organic yogurt because it is not processed with the antibiotics and all the different things that are in, regular traditional dairy. So I highly recommend an organic yogurt, a plain yogurt, and adding a little bit of fruit, blueberries, raspberries, to flavor it yourself. That's one way to get a probiotic in your child. Another way to get it into your child is by a capsule or, a supplement. As far as that's concerned, you have to be careful that it is double encapsulated. There are some out there that are double encapsulated that you want it to open up and just deposit that good bacteria in the intestines and not in the stomach, because the acid in your stomach will destroy the good bacteria. So you have to be super careful what kind of probiotic that you're getting.
Is there any place that you'd recommend that our listeners go and look for those?
There are a couple. Personally, we use doTERRA's PB Assist. They have a one for adults, and they also have one for children that is like a melon flavored, and my kids love it. It's almost like a pixie stick. It's very easy to take, and it is double encapsulated, so it does enter into their intestines before it opens up. If they're older and they can take a capsule, definitely the PB Assist is great. I also like Gero's EPS that you can get at a health food store as well. That's double encapsulated, it's shelf stable, and you can actually take that, and it delivers 5 billion CFUs to the intestine. So that's another great one. Gero is a great brand.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to the second point, which was looking at our labels. What are some of the really harmful things that perhaps our listeners don't know that they need to avoid on those labels?
Right. Well, there's 5 things that we'll kind of chat about, go through. Is the first thing is, of course, artificial colors. Food dyes are in so many things, and we need to read our labels because it's there, and a lot of times you don't think it's there. Cookies and cake decorations, they're highly processed, and there's tons of artificial colors, and it has been shown, even in children without a diagnosis of ADHD or any of those diagnoses, to increase hyperactivity in just neurotypical children. So artificial colors are huge to keep away from your kids, as well as artificial flavors and artificial sweeteners. Those are like the top 3, stay away from as best you can. A lot of times, things will be masked, like there's something called sodium benzoate, and that's a preservative. So you want to stay away from preservatives as well. And the thing being is they're really called excitotoxins, and they really can stimulate your brain and really hurt the neurons and the neurotransmitters in your brain. So those are the things, artificial colors, artificial flavors, sodium benzoate, sugar is huge. So, of course, sugar, just keeping the sugar down. And then that's like your 4 top things to stay away from, for
Wonderful.
Sure.
What a great list. And it's incredible. A lot of people may find this overwhelming because we're so used to buying packaged processed foods. But isn't it right? It's easy once you switch to eating real food. I mean, those apples don't come with food dye or, things like that. Eggs, they're not full of artificial sweeteners. Like, it's just getting back to the real basics, right?
Basics. Getting back to the basics. Okay. Exactly.
So share with us about community, especially I feel like we have a lot of listeners here who are in rural communities. I get feedback all the time and messages saying, we don't have access to a lot of these things. So keeping them in mind as well, what are some of the ways that our listeners can get involved in community when they have children who are experiencing some of these challenges?
Well, for me, when I was when we were first diagnosed, Matthew was born in the year, he's 19 and a half, he'll be 20 in January. So he was born right when Google started. So literally, we had no internet, we didn't have anything like that. So community was hard for us because we didn't have that. It's kind of like the rural area. I felt very alone. I had a few friends that I met through these different therapies that we were going through. One that I actually still, have contact and copy with just last week. So that's huge. But there's so many times in the rural areas, like you said, that you don't have that ability to get out, because how hard is it just to be able to get your kiddo and go somewhere? And then a lot of times I used to find with Matthew, when we go somewhere, he's hyperactive. He's not being able, he cannot sit still. He cannot engage with other kids. He's struggling, and I'm trying to, interact with another mom, and it's like, oh yeah, this isn't going to happen. We need to go. So that's why I think online communities are great. Facebook groups are great right now. Anything that you can do online, I think, is a great way to be able to meet with other families who are going through these challenges, to bounce ideas off of each other, to support each other, and just be able to build that community so you're not alone. You don't feel like you're all alone, and that your child is just like so many others, struggling in so many different ways. So I think it's huge community for that way. Exactly.
So with your coaching, is there any of those groups that you personally offer, or are you just one-on-one, you kind of get them going and then kind of send them on their way? How does that work?
For us, there's several ways for people to get involved. The first thing we do offer is a membership site. I have a membership site for families who want to come in and, share and just be, nurturing and have compassion, and that we know what they're going through. And the membership site is, full of families like that. And we bring in special guests who, like, I have a learning specialist that comes in and chats with us about the learning piece and what they can do to help their child, even advocate for them through the schools, because they've been there and done that. We have a yoga teacher that comes in and talks about how important yoga is to help calm the child's system from the inside out. So we have Zoom calls where we get on and we get to see each other. So we're meeting other families that way, and then you build community that way. And then we just kind of nurture them and just answer their questions and provide advice as far as health coaching advice, like what I know of from nutritionally standpoint. And then I bring other specialists in to facilitate questions on their specialties, special ed teachers, therapists, that nature. So they feel like, wow, I can do this. I have this group and I can do this. So I think it's huge. So I do have that. And then I also offer group coaching. I also offer one-on-one family coaching, where I just take one family and we dive into what's going on with you and your family and how can we get you where you want to be. What are your goals? And we go through all that as well.
Wonderful. And how can people get in contact with you?
Well, my website, treeoflifehealthcoaching.net. That is one way to get in touch with me. I also have a Facebook business page, which is Tree of Life Health Coaching. And through all that, there's ways to message me. And, of course, my phone number is on there as well.
This has been so enlightening, and I think, encouraging for parents who have children that perhaps they either have already been diagnosed and they're trying to manage and they're trying to figure out how they continue to make this happen. And we know eating natural, healthy foods is an ongoing effort. I don't want to use the word challenge because it really can happen. It's just about getting those habits going and finding solutions and getting you got to be careful who you surround yourself with. That's what I have found with a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And that also goes back to your mindset.
Yeah. And so bringing all these things in and saying, this is not a challenge unless I make it one. And so kind of on that tangent there, let's kind of wrap this up thinking, how do we as I'm assuming mostly mothers are listening to this, as mothers, how do our listeners stay emotionally strong, perhaps in very difficult situations, much like you experienced? Let's build their emotional strength.
Right. So for me, I'm a believer, a very strong, faith-filled woman. So, I mean, God is huge in my life, and that is where I found my support. As far as, every day it felt, extremely, extremely hard. And then being positive. I mean, there are, positive books out there to read. There's tons of books. There's tons of podcasts you can get on and look for, building your mindset, personal development. How do we get from, feeling in this negative down to saying, no, this is not a challenge. It's a new part of my life, and we're going to dive into it, and I can do this. And, I firmly believe that God gave me Matthew for a reason, and I am the best mother for this child, and that is why he's here or she's here, and I am going to search out the best way to help my child, and just really always, advocating for your child, and knowing that you're his or her voice. You're there, and that's why, that child was given to you, because you can do it. You can do this. And yes, we all have a point where, we go through things, and I firmly believe that we go through things for a reason. And that as we get farther on in our life's journey, we will be able to bless and serve those behind us who are going through it now. So I firmly believe that.
That's beautiful. What a great way to end. Well, Mary, we thank you so much for your time, for your contribution, and being the woman you are, who made a miracle out of a potential mess where you could have, just kind of boiled down and kind of fallen apart, but you chose instead to strengthen yourself and your family, and now look at the good you're doing in this world. So thank you for doing that.
And thank you, Kristy Jo, for having me. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Nope, it's not another diet. The Power Foods Lifestyle's real-life approach helps you become a strategist of your own health using science, psychological tactics, and practical application techniques. You will not need to kiss your favorite foods goodbye, but you will start learning how food works in your body. You'll begin to tweak the way you construct meals. You'll learn how to balance your blood sugar, and most importantly, you will learn how to accept yourself for not being perfect and commit to the journey. It's messy, but you gotta keep going. Start your Body Buddies journey today with the Power Foods Lifestyle Starter Kit. So what's inside the starter kit? The paperback copy of the Power Foods Lifestyle, personally signed by me, the audiobook digital files so you can listen while you clean up, drive, cook, or do tasks around the house, my 3 PDF printable recipe books with over 150 delicious, simple, and totally easy recipes that even the most novice cook can enjoy, 6 sample Power Foods Lifestyle fat loss meal plans for women, the Power Foods shopping list, and the food prep planner. Now, if you were just to buy the copy of the paperback book on Amazon, that would run you about $22. The starter kit is only $37, which is going to save you over 60% of what you would pay if you were to buy all of these products separately. So I've put them all together, everything you need to really get this self-study journey started. This is the best way to get started and learning, whether you're ready to start with coaching now or ready to do the academy. This is the best place to get started. You do have what it takes to power your mind and body. Let Body Buddies and the Power Foods Lifestyle be your next path of progression into a sustainable lifestyle change.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes. You can learn more about Body Buddies and Power Foods Lifestyle by going to www.body-buddies.com, BODY-BUDDIES.com, and powerfoodslifestyle.com. That's www.POWERFOODS-lifestyle.com.
Information in this episode is provided for informational purposes and is not meant to substitute the advice provided by your own physician or other medical professional. Information and statements regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.